Hey, it's Stu, and I'm still quite under the weather, but I'm sitting out here in the sunshine, all bundled up, and I want to get this weekend reading review done because it's on my to-do list, and I have moved on to my new TBR. So, let me see. Not on my Black History Month TBR was This Is How You Lose a Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. I actually took notes, which is pretty rare, but I think I was starting to get a little sick when I was reading this, and I could feel my head being a bit cloudy. So here are my thoughts. Oh my gosh, did when I first started reading it, I just totally got the sensation that this is sort of like a book that's going to have a cult following, let me see, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Or in my case, I was one of the fangirls of Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And that's just the impression I got of this book. So I imagine for some people, this is, their cult love, and they're not that interested in hearing other people's less than positive reviews. I liked the big ideas in this, like moving around in multiverses. I really liked that as a like sci-fi concept, sort of thinking about philosophically technology versus organic. Um, I also kind of like that it confront what the F is the point of war, and the age-all existential question for me, which is, will love actually conquer all? So thematically, I really liked it. Prose-wise, I also really liked it. I thought it was quite beautiful prose. I liked the love story. However, I think this, like, the mismatch, maybe the two authors, maybe the mishmashing of elements, just kind of brought me out of the story several times, and I found myself just wondering what in the heck. I was kind of oscillating between utter delight, which is what I feel when I read any part of Douglas Adams. Well, let me say when I used to read, because I haven't read in years and years. But when I was a total fangirl of Douglas Adams's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it was just delight after delight, and like what, and reread. And this, I felt more like some delight, and then wait, what? And I didn't know if I just wasn't bothered to go back and reread or reorient myself. And maybe that's the joy for some people, and that could have had to do with my head cold too. But yeah, in summary, I'm glad I read it. I can see why people, yeah, I could see right away that this was going to be a cult favorite for some folks, and happy to get it back out there so it can find more of those folks. Sticking with sci-fi, next I read Adrienne Maree Brown's Grievers. This is a Afrofuturistic dystopian set in Detroit. I was really quite happy to be in Detroit. I don't get Detroit very much as a setting. And this dystopian, like probably all dystopians, confronts a lot of dystopian-esque problems that we experience in literal and real world, and it uses sort of extreme cases or hypothetical scenarios to confront our healthcare system, legacy, and in this case very much race, and I would say even the issues that Detroit as a city face. I liked the quoting and the footnoting of some of Detroit's leaders and social justice leaders, and I found this very much to be a work of social justice, and I found the writing quite good too. There's more to this. I think there's at least another book, if not three. I don't know if I'll read them unless I find them, but I think, again, this book is going to find a lot of folks who love it. For Octavia E. Butler's fans, please check out Adrienne Maree Brown's Grievers, and this AK Press publishing house, company, I'm not quite sure exactly. Okay, next I read Eleanor Scherer's Rivers Sing Me Home. So when I thought that I was going to pair read this and and Washington Black. And I thought the Washington Black was going to be kind of light and fun and adventuristic, and this was going to be a little bit heavier. Indeed, when we're dealing with the setting of the Caribbean during transatlantic chattel slavery, there's no such thing as light and adventurous. However, the hero's arc kind of looks different. It could be a little bit more adventure driven, and I found actually this one to be a little bit lighter. The themes are extremely. You can't talk about that blight on humanity and on our collective human consciousness without confronting some really, really, really dark places. So that's to be expected. This one was a kind of straightforward told story. There wasn't a whole lot of literary technique to tell it. It was just, I'm going to tell this story, and the story is going to be about a woman who's going to find her children who are separated from her because of the mechanisms of slavery. And she was going to find them and experiencing her journey to find them and their reunions. So actually, I found there was a lot of love and triumph in this, and as well in Washington Black, but Washington Black was quite a bit more of an allegory, and this was just a narrative that needed to be told, and I am glad that I got to read it. Next we have April Sinclair's I Left My Back Door Open, and I DNF'd this about a third of the way into it. It was written in the 90s. It didn't carry over. There were just multiple infractions that were incredibly problematic, and even in trying to give grace, I just couldn't. Especially given where we're at, I'm going to say post Me Too and in the Epstein dialogues, this sort of making light of sexual harassment and then flirting with the mediator didn't work for me. So if you haven't read the book or you haven't got into it, just don't listen too much. I'm not going to hate too much. And of course, referring to being a lesbian as a lifestyle or a preference or a choice as such, and saying that people have different preferences, and framing it like that, it doesn't work, and there could be other things to get from this book, but I just, those elements were two of maybe the more egregious, and there were some other that it didn't stand time. And that's it. There's a lot of great things to read. There are probably other virtues in that book. Again, I don't want to be a huge hater, but I couldn't get to them because I was too distracted. Next, I read The 12 Tribes of Hattie by Ayanna Mathis, which was an Oprah's Book Club selection, I think in maybe 2016 or 17. In any case, it was nice to get back to kind of some literary device and some craft womanship in the writing, because Ayanna Mathis has some writing craft that I really enjoyed. And in this book, we're following the offspring of our main character, Hattie, who certainly has her struggles in life. We start with the Great Migration and then go through in a direct timeline, but through multiple characters, until somewhat modern times. I can't remember the last one where there's the 12th tribe is a grandchild. It's Cassie, 1980. Yeah, so in that way it was a little bit, it reminded me a little of Yagassi's Homegoing, and that we're tracing sort of the lineage. However, in Yagassi's it's multi-generational. In this one, it's the children and then one grandchild that Hattie is raising, and sort of the way that the conditions, the familiar and societal conditions, impacted each of the individuals. I do like to look at big families and multiple siblings and how they all kind of turn out differently. And so I found this book quite enjoyable, and I've just recently hauled another one by this author, and I'm glad. I liked her writing style, and I definitely, if you like Yassi's Homegoing, this is another another book to check out. Our setting is mostly Philadelphia, by the way, and that was nice to have a little diversity in setting. And then finally, That Kind of Mother by Rumaan Alam. Yeah, I like his writing style too. I do. I felt like this book, it maybe is a little dated, meaning when it was published in 2018, some of these conversations probably felt a bit fresher, and the nuance that was brought in this book probably was enough, and now maybe not so much. But I tried not to hold that per se against the book. I did feel sometimes, I say Roman really went all the way. Like, he starts the book writing what a woman is feeling during childbirth. And I think for a male identified author who has never born children, I think that that was a feat to take on, and I respect his attempt. There were times when his white woman character felt a little too cliche or stereotypical. And again, that could be just a sign of the times. We've kind of moved on. We have more texture and nuance. And when we're just starting a conversation, or it feels like this conversation is becoming more mainstream, maybe as 10 years ago when this book was being written, the nuance maybe didn't need to be there. Maybe the sort of stereotype needed to be there to enter into the conversation. That being said, I do appreciate the subtlety of a lot of how he's exploring sort of how we raise children, how we relate with each other or don't relate with each other, these inter-race relationships, interprivilege, or lack therein relationships. I think that he is catching some subtlety there, that's worth reading about. And definitely I have another book that's also about adoption, maybe around the same area, that I'm also curious to read. And I don't throw this one out. I think there's some things to gain, and I do like his writing style. It did fall short in some regards, some that I've already explained, and others, no need again to be hatery. But I think there's a readership that could still probably really benefit from even the level of nuance in this book. So I'm happy to put it back out into the Little Free Library or donation universe, so others can find it and think about the themes of mothership, family relationships, and what diversity within relationships really means. So that's it for this wrap up. Sorry, I'm squinting a little because of the sun and also, the congestion. But I feel like I'm on the mend, and the next video will, of course, be a haul video because that's just how I am. And maybe I'll have some exciting books to get excited about. Until then, I'll be working away on my merch, TBR.